So our open guard is actually a bunch of different guards. There are a lot of variations of what you might call an open guard, which is really just any situation where my opponent is out in front of me, usually standing, and my feet are open, not locked up behind him, with my legs in between my hips and his hips, keeping him from moving around and forming that pin at the end of the pass. We're gonna have a bunch of different ways of playing open guard. We'll have, step a little bit further forward. We'll have our De La Hiva, reverse De La Hiva. We're gonna have X guard, reverse X guard. There are numerous types of open guard that we might be playing. So the positioning of it in and of itself varies constantly. There's a bunch of different rules for a bunch of different open guards. But the most basic things that I'm looking for are to keep my legs and my feet in between my torso and his torso. All right, if I get these moved off to the side, I open up all this room for him to pass through. If I take my feet off, I have no tool to manage the space here. All right, I want to be playing around with pushing, pulling. We're gonna have a lot of different connections that I can use when I'm down here, whether I'm framing on the body. Sometimes we might be down here, lean forward a little bit, and I might start taking some grips up in the bicep. This isn't the most robust grip in the world compared to the same style of play in a gi, but I have a lot of luck with this in terms of stopping my opponents from coming down, closing this space, and getting a top pin on me. So as we play around with the open guards, and I'm aware this one is not a super detailed tutorial for this position, but that's simply because there are so many open guards. When we first start, we will be looking at the most basic, just a double ankle sweep, knocking somebody back and trying to get up on top of them. All of this open guard work that we're going to do centers around the idea of understanding his base and either taking it away from him or making it impossible for him to move it around before I can attach myself wherever he may be. So some of our open guard work is gonna be centered around knocking people down, but then sometimes we're also going to be instead trying to root them in place and bring myself in to connect on different limbs, usually the legs. We'll talk about that here in just a second. So as always, on the flip side of this, I want to start reverse engineering everything I wanted from that point of view. He wants feet, legs, knees in between my body and his body. So in a lot of different ways, we'll get to all those as we start learning our passes. We want to get our way off to the side, usually into this little hip pocket here, this space that opens up as we separate knee and elbow and expose the pin right here. So open guard, I'm looking to keep him from connecting. Sometimes I'll be taking grips on the feet. Sometimes it'll be on the shins. Sometimes I'll be a little bit closer up to the knee or maybe even the hip as I move my way around. And we also have other styles of passing. So we have outside passing and we also have inside passing where I'll bring myself into the guard in safe ways and start beating his hips and his movement to work my way around. And we're gonna have a lot of different ways of doing this, but everything is about angles, leverage, and avoiding all of the dangers of this position, which we're about to look at next. So when we are playing open guard, we are not gonna have many upper body submissions in a no-gi situation because the grips are not going to allow me to pull him down to where his shoulders and his arms are isolated and close enough to my body to bring myself up and throw up submissions. In a gi, I have grips that are extremely hard to fight. So I could just take 2 wrist grips here, step on his bicep and elbow, and just bring my hips high enough to throw up a triangle right from what we would call a spider guard in a gi. But when we are in no-gi, it's so much easier to strip grips. The grips that we take in no-gi will come easy and they will go easy. They're very fast-paced, they're transient, they don't last very long. So we want to hold on tight when we can, but we want to expect that we're going to lose them. And because of that, I'm not going to go for a ton of upper body submissions from here. Most of the work that I do from the bottom is going to be centered around sweeping, wrestling up, and leg locks. Our leg locks are going to be the main method of attack when we are underneath of somebody in our open guard. I can use them for the finish itself, or I can just use them simply to sweep. So let's say I move myself in, I take the leg. Regardless of how this goes, I'm going to need to knock him down to his hip. Our leg locks are going to be very hard to hit on a standing opponent. So the first thing I do is knock him down.
Oh no.
And from here, I make the decision of, do I attack this foot or do I control the foot and start standing up so that I can pass? So the same movement can function either as a setup for our submission or a setup for our sweep and to put us into a good position to pass an opponent who's on their back. Another thing that we're going to be looking for often are our sweeps. We spoke about that a little bit ago, but this is a huge part of the offense from the open guard. Where I am underneath of somebody, they're above me in a combat situation. This obviously isn't ideal. Maybe in a jiu-jitsu tournament where it's more of a chess match and I can be strategic down here. But as a rule of thumb, I don't want to be underneath of people all the time. Things can go wrong. One little misplacement of a foot, it gets slipped off and now I'm eating all of his body pressure and weight from a side control or a mount situation. I don't want to do that. So very often we are thinking to sweep and set them down to their hips. We have those leg entries as sweeps, but we also have a bunch of different methods to stop his movement of his feet and then push his base back behind it. So we have things like our tripod sweep where I hold an ankle, push a hip, and stop the other leg from moving back. And from here, I start off balancing him and setting him to his butt. We have our double ankle sweeps where I catch both ankles and then knock his hips back beyond his feet. These are very simple options for sweeps. We're gonna have a lot of them, but these are ones that kind of demonstrate what a sweep really is, which is that I stop your base from moving and shifting. I turn it into a stagnant thing that you can't evolve. And then I shove your actual body weight beyond that. If you're stuck and your lower body can't move to compensate for my force, you topple over. And that's all a sweep really is I figure out where your base is and then I put your weight beyond that base. So the last method of attacking that we will be looking at in our open guard is going to be the concept of wrestling up. A wrestle up will give us the same amount of points that a sweep would, but it happens from my feet. As opposed to setting somebody down from my back, a wrestle up is a situation where I go from my open guard, or I guess other guards, but I go from a guard and I start to build myself up into a good wrestling position. Ideally, not just a wrestling position like building up into an underhook or something like that, but I wrestle up to the end of a takedown. Instead of having to start from the feet, fight through the hands, fight past the head, deal with all the grips and connections and hope to get to a takedown, I start from the bottom, I build my way up, and now I already have my single leg ready to go. I don't have to fight through all of that exhausting wrestling, the hand fight, the head fight, all that stuff that goes on that makes wrestling difficult. I can basically teleport to the end of that exchange by wrestling up. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned. We got a lot more coming.